Welcome back to another episode of Fill My Hole. My name is Phil Balabanos, and this is not going to be a regular podcast. I mean, I don't even know if a one person, this kind of setup is even considered a podcast, but it's definitely not going to be what you're used to from Fill My Hole. And that's kind of why I'm doing this, because I want to know what I should expect people to be useful. What? That doesn't make any sense. Guys, I'm having a hard time here. I want to know what people should expect from Fill My Hole. I mean, it started off as a gag 3 years ago. It was just a joke, a play on words that Pantelis made on This Just Thing. If you haven't seen This Just Thing, go to my website. It's in the YouTube section, or check out Pantelis Comedy on YouTube, and you can see what that is. I mean, if you are here, you either know me personally or you've learned about this podcast from This Just Thing. But then the lockdown happened. Pandemic hits. I'm at home, working from home, still consulting for a company in the States, and making none of my own content. And I hated that. I absolutely hated that. I mean, I didn't hate working from home. It had its challenges, but what I hated was not making This Just Thing or any other projects on the side. So I started Fill My Hole as a podcast where I was interviewing guests via Zoom, because now all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, because of the fact that people don't expect to be in the same physical space as you anymore, Zoom calls were okay. I mean, I had the setup. I was ready to go. I have enough equipment from the years that I've been producing videos that I could set up a podcast in an afternoon. I mean, in the early episodes, you'll see I'm using like an H5 recorder, which isn't ideal for this type of... I mean, it's not ideal. It's not the worst thing. There are way worse things, but that's what I had, and that's what I use. It cost me no money. I just got started, and it was fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. And things went sideways. Things went sideways at the studio at Xenospace, and we weren't able to produce content from there anymore, and that meant I had no place to go, because from home, I couldn't do it. I mean, there's too many distractions. The kids are around. I can't have like a long-form conversation with someone. It's just not possible. So we had to build a new studio, which is where I'm at now. I mean, a lot of people have seen the new studio. You can check out my Instagram at pbalabanos if you want to, or at Balabanos Creative if you want the company account for a little less nonsense. And Fill My Hole just kind of fell to the side. And every time I said I wanted to start again, there was always an issue. There was something. We had to deal with the soundproofing initially. The soundproofing for This Just Thing in the main studio was the bane of my existence the entire first month and a half that we were here. We moved in here. When did we move in? We signed the lease August 1st, but we only really moved in September. From September till the end of October, we barely had sound paneling. The place was still coming together, and we just couldn't shoot This Just Thing, and that just made me even more miserable. And by the time that all got set up, and I think I'm going to change on position here. I think this is better. For those of you who are on video, I simply just shifted to the left. I mean, for those of you who are only listening and not on video. And we fixed the studio. It's end of October, fall, allergy season for me. And I start just getting, every time we're trying to do This Just Thing or anything, even the morning show, I start getting this heaviness in my chest. And I can barely speak, and I'm sort of out of breath. And that cascades into, I mean, I've experienced this before. It's not new. It's not 100% new anyways. It's been going on for years on and off. Like my doctor knows about it. It's really bad allergies. That's why my voice is still so hoarse right now. But what it did was start a cascading like ripple effect. I guess the stress of the pandemic and the move and just everything. And I just started having panic attacks out of the blue constantly. Like middle of a morning show, 2 minutes after we wrap on This Just Thing, and every time I set this goddamn microphone in front of me and try to say, welcome to another episode of I'm short of breath, and it triggers a panic attack. This is the furthest, I mean, this is not the first episode like this that I've tried to record. This is the furthest I've ever gotten. And I have a good feeling, because I've been dealing with the anxiety that was linked to that. I still have that heaviness. It's not so bad anymore. I mean, the weather's getting colder, so slowly that will go away. But I just didn't want to allow my mind to be conditioned by these constant panic attacks, so that even after this symptom went away, I was having panic attacks. So I was proactive in that sense. I didn't let it get so bad, So I've been working on that, and it's a lot of nothing that interesting. Just it reads like a self help book. But no, jokes aside, anxiety is not to be fucked with. Like if you have issues with it, you need to address them relatively quickly, or else you end up in a fucking vicious cycle. So back to Fill My Hole, this show that I haven't been able to produce forever now. The show started off as a joke where I was doing investigative journalism. I mean, there's a part of that joke that I would love to do, but given the constraints on my time due to contract work, so making a living, taking care of my family, being with my kids, doing all the content we're already doing, I just can't figure out for the life of me how I would find the time to do that. As much as I'd love to. I mean, it's not a question of if you want to do it, you'll find the time. It's literally there. I mean, every single one of my hours in a day, for the most part, is accounted for. And it's not like I sleep 10 hours. I sleep like six, maybe 6 hours, 5 hours a day. So I would like to do it. I think it would be a really cool thing. I just don't know how many interesting topics I could come up with. Then there was the idea of just me talking about whatever, not in a full on documentary style setting where I find a topic and I just fucking jibber jabber about it and I check on the computer over here and I read you some stuff and I fill some holes in the story and whatever. I mean, we kind of do that on the morning show anyways. This just thing does that to a certain extent where like we're looking at current events and things that don't make sense we make fun of. I mean, we don't fill the hole in the facts. We just kind of plug the hole with jokes, and I mean that's kind. I have that outlet. I don't think I need another one of those outlets. I did really like the interview format though, but people are fucking busy and it's hard to schedule. But that's no reason not to do it. I'm not saying it is. I'm just thinking, aren't all podcasts just long form conversations at this point? God damn it, there's a truck backing up. Honestly, the studio, it's the greatest and worst place in the world. Really, it is. And I'm just going to show off here that my microphone is wireless. Yeah, because I'm lazy and I don't like cables. I probably brought it too close. But yeah, just wanted to show this off to everyone watching. I mean, if you guys have a Rode Go, it turns out it can make for a very, very good podcast mic. It looks right. You didn't know it wasn't plugged in until I fucking walked away with it. Like, look at that. I mean, this is the freedom to podcast any way you want. You can stand up, you can walk around. My fly's open as usual. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just saying, it's a cool thing. And that brings me to the next point. I mean, maybe me talking about equipment and tech and gear, the kind of stuff. I don't mean tech in general, like, yo, I'm MKBHD, because I'm not. I'm just Phil. Maybe that's something that's interesting, and that's kind of what my vlog used to be, but it was a very, very highly produced version of it, where there was a lot of cuts and a lot of cutaways, and it was very time consuming, and I didn't get much satisfaction from it. There's a few episodes where I went out and did something, and I documented it, and then I talked about it on the vlog. That I really enjoyed, like fire spinning with George, or that time I went randomly just to test out a color profile. There's a few. I mean, the vlogs are still up on my YouTube channel. You can check them out. But that's kind of where I'm at. There's a lot of questions in my mind as to what Fill My Hole was always meant to be, or was it even meant to be? Like, should I be doing this? Do I think I need to be putting on podcasts on my own outside of the Pantelis universe? Yeah, I do. I mean, the months that I was, or the weeks, because it was 2 months, the weeks that I was putting out podcasts, my website traffic was incredibly high, higher than anything I've ever experienced. And at one point, I had paid for a service to boost my SEO. I mean, podcasting, if anything, is the best form of free marketing. I mean, it's not fully free because there are a few little costs associated. But I mean, I'm not talking about like I had 10 or 20 new visitors. I mean, like the spikes in my data were crazy. It was like 300% higher than it was before. And this is all during a lockdown. Granted, keep in mind, this lockdown has made the work I do invaluable to a lot of people. This is going to sound terrible, but I love that, because I feel that when I started, I guess, my career, people saw me as like, oh, he wants to be an artist, whatever. And some people thought it was cool, but some people looked down on it. I mean, I never really paid much attention to the people who looked down on it. I just did, like I just knew that they did. But at the same time, like there wasn't an importance put on the, like, as if the work I did wasn't important. And I mean, sure, some of the commercials I make for these stupid things, like I've done stuff that I'm like, wow, I don't even have it on my website anymore. Even though the commercial was okay, it's just such a waste of resources and everyone's time. I do it for a paycheck, right? And that's fine. And 9 times out of 10, when I have that kind of a feeling, I won't do it. But then there's that one time where I do it because maybe I like the person, and like I don't really care about the product because I think it's silly, but I really like them and I want to help them out. But there's a part of me that knows that this isn't gonna go anywhere. So like that 1%, that 10%, I mean, it never even sees the light of day because that company ceases to exist because that product isn't a real need for, no one needs it or whatever it is, product or service or whatever. So now all of a sudden, like, people need me. It feels good to be needed. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like it. But I mean, that's, like I said, that's where I'm at. I'm trying to figure out what to do with this. I mean, I'm gonna continue putting out content with Pantelis and Poseidon and George. George, of course. I mean, George, are you ever gonna invite me to your show when it's not last minute the night before? I mean, I'm a dad. It's just us dads. For the listeners only, I stared, not longingly, but like a guilt-ridden mother into the camera there for a few seconds. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. It's gonna be a short one, a short little podcast, quickie quick. What are we? 11:47. We're at 11 and a half minutes. I'm gonna go to 12 minutes. So yeah, I'm gonna continue putting out that content. The morning show is a lot of fun. The morning show is, I mean, it's a huge time commitment. It's 4 hours a week, which may not seem like a lot, but it's a lot. But it's a lot of fun to do, and I mean, I feel like it. I'm best. I suit the show best when George is wrapping up his news run, because like I kind of just want to shoot the shit. I don't want to do the news and go deep, deep, deep on some of these stories. Mostly because my political views are very different from George's and very different from Pantelis's. I mean, they exist on the inside center of fringes, right? That's how I would. I'm sure neither of them would classify themselves that way. That's my observation. It's my opinion, obviously. But I don't mean they're fringe, they're not radicals, but I mean they exist on the inside, towards the center of each spectrum end. That sentence didn't make any sense. Maybe I shouldn't be an investigative journalist, which I'm not, by the way. I'm just a filmmaker. My name is Phil Balabanos. This has been Fill My Hole. I had a hole in my day, a few minutes that I could spare to try and do this, test out this new setup. If you listen to this, if you watch this, thank you. Thank you for coming along for 12 minutes. Get back to work, you fucking procrastinator. Okay? Put your phone away. Put your phone away and get some work done. You gotta get paid. Your kids need to eat. You gotta pay rent. But don't stress about it. There's no reason to be stressed out. It'll make you anxious. You don't want to be anxious. Then you're gonna be some guy in a hoodie, fucking on the internet going, what should I do with my podcast? What is life? Thank you for joining me in the hole. I'll see you guys. I mean, there's no schedule, so I'll see you next time. And I won't actually see you. You'll just see. Anyways, I'm out. Bye. You've been listening to Fill My Hole. This podcast is available on YouTube in its full video form. If you're lazy and you don't want to Google it and you don't want to search on YouTube, balabanos.com, hit the podcast section. You can subscribe directly to the RSS feed there. My name is Phil Balabanos, and I'll see you next time.